So I gotta talk about this here second Trump assassination attempt. Now, isn't that crazy stuff? And so Trump has somebody try to take him out a while ago, like 2 months ago. Somebody tries to assassinate President Trump, and now here we are, and at the golf course somebody tries to do it again, and this time apparently it's some dude who was into the Ukraine war activism kind of stuff, trying to rally people to go fight for Ukraine, and he was saying, you know, he was posting all kinds of stuff about how Trump is a threat and democracy's on the ticket and we can't let Trump win. And so now here we are, and it's unprecedented. You know, thankfully both of the last two of these assassination attempts were not successful, and yet we really don't want to live to see one be successful. You know, it was a tragic day when JFK was assassinated, and that's before my time. But you know, I sure hope that we don't see a presidential assassination in the United States. That would be such a tragic blight on our legacy as a country. But the point I want to get at here, because I think it's just such an important point, and I really do think it ties in well, oddly, with the perspective of this channel, which always tries to come back to looking at life through the lens of an adventure gamer. You know, we so easily start to get into the different camps of being tribal about things, and we start to roast other people who have perspectives on life which differ from our own. I was a member of a lot of different groups on Facebook for different games that I like to play, and I always think it's interesting on those groups how almost always people wind up forming camps and then going at each other. You know, I've seen people in the City Skylines group fighting over whether roundabouts or regular intersections are better, whether mass transit or normal car travel are better. People are fighting about whether City Skylines 1 or City Skylines 2 is the better game. In the flight simulator group, I see people fighting about whether Flight Simulator is a game or a simulation, whether it's possible for someone to learn how to fly a real airplane from the sim, or if it's just a game. And there's people who are on both sides, people who have invested thousands and thousands of dollars into their setups, and other people who just play the game on Xbox and they're at each other every single day trying to put the other side down to make a case that one is more serious or more credible than the other group, or one is more based than the other. In MMO communities, I see people fighting about whether PvE is better or PvP, whether one MMO is better than another one, whether a gacha game is good for the industry or bad for the industry. Like, there's just so many examples of people becoming super tribal about something in a game, and next thing you know, they're at each other's throat. And it's so unfortunate, because it doesn't really matter, and yet it's in people's nature to find something, anything, and then to start getting combative with other people over it. And it's obnoxious when it's just low-level toxicity in a Facebook group. But what happens when it's something more serious? What happens when people start saying that someone is a threat? Like in the case of Trump, saying that Trump is a threat to democracy, saying that the President of the United States, past President of the United States, is comparable to Hitler, or that people who support him are equivalent to fascist dictators, or people who saw the first assassination attempt of President Trump and then said it was a shame that whoever had tried to attack him last time had missed. And people will say, well, we didn't really mean it to be a call for violence. And yet the truth is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you say things which are deliberately a call for violence, or if you just are happy inside and you're smiling while other people suffer, or you casually just add a little bit of fuel to an existing fire. When you are implying that it would be a good thing if somebody was not only removed from a political race, but actively removed from life, it's not a surprise when people start to act on those calls, indirect calls perhaps, but nevertheless calls for violence. And I think it's very important, no matter what side of the fence you find yourself on, to really kind of think about how it's so easy to escalate situations, and everybody thinks that they're innocent. But if I've learned anything in relationships, it's that there's people who will say, I didn't do anything, it was the other person. But the truth is, usually if you look behind the curtain, you will find that there's more to the story than meets the eye. It wasn't just that one person did something unprovoked entirely. It's that they were goaded into doing something. Now, I know with the whole Trump thing, there's all of the folks on the anti-Trump train that'll want to talk about January 6th and all of that stuff. But the truth of the matter is, it was Trump people. It was all of those. It was people who were protesting at that event on January 6th who wound up shot and killed. Not a single one of those people actually killed anybody or harmed anybody. But at least one of them was killed. Now, that was a wild situation. But the truth of the matter is, we are inclined to use something that's now years in the past and didn't actually involve anything close to actual assassination attempts, and then use that as an excuse for somehow almost justifying people today trying to deliberately attack and kill a former president of the United States. And I think that there's a lot of hate going around, and it really seems like a very, very bad look for liberals to get excited when they think that Trump might get killed. And that's exactly what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Now, does that mean that people on the right side of the fence are innocent all the time? No. There's people who say all sorts of things they shouldn't say and do all sorts of things they shouldn't do, and that's true on both sides of the fence. But it's also true that You know, it's very hard to look at what's going on and say it's a surprise when people start trying to do harm, because there's been so much messaging put out there to suggest that this is not an election where we're going to make our cases on both sides and then we're going to respect the outcome. We've sent the messaging out there that this is a time for winning at any cost, because the future of the world depends on it. So if you're one of those people, and you know, truthfully, I would say on either side of the fence, if you're one of those people who thinks that if your side doesn't win the election, the world is going to end, you need to check yourself. You need to calm the heck down and understand that you are a toxic person. That's true whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat. Now, I've talked about this a little bit because I just like to talk about it and see if I can be inflammatory and get myself in trouble with you guys. But, you know, the thing is, bottom line, my opinion is I'll put my vote into the hat for Trump. And I've voted for Democrats before, and I might vote for him again in the future, but right now my opinion is I'll put my vote on Trump, because that's what seems like the best choice in my opinion. But you know what? Let's just say hypothetically that Trump doesn't win. Well, then we're going to have a president of the United States, right? And we're going to have to respect that, because you respect the commander in chief. It's just that simple. There's no value in saying, well, if Kamala Harris wins, then the world's going to end. Well, no. Do I think that she's the right person for the job? In my opinion, no. But does that change the fact that if she did win, it's our duty to support her and hope that she will do well for our nation? Of course we should. And that's something that we have lost. This desire to be civil, the desire to see good in both sides, and to truly be inclusive. It's very easy to talk about DEI stuff and be all about inclusion when it's an abstract, when you're adding a non-binary elf to the Elder Scrolls Online, I guess then it's easy to talk about inclusion. But you know what kind of inclusion is not easy to talk about? It's respecting people when you dramatically disagree with their positions. It's wishing them well and supporting them if that is your duty, even if you disagree. And that's rare. It's something that we've found it easier and easier not to do, because we now have social media and we have all of these opportunities to express our voice, to express our opinion, and to do it in a way that's anonymous enough to avoid the consequences. So you have all these keyboard warriors that are working super hard to win the internet. And most of it's all just a lot of harmless fun. It's just people doing what people do, which is stir the pot. It is. It's just not a big deal. It's not a big deal until it is a big deal, because somebody has done real harm based on something that they read on the internet. And I think there's so much misinformation that gets spread around. People who just share whatever because they think it's funny, even if it's hurtful or untrue. People who will share anything that aligns with their narrative just because they toe a party line. We need to be a bit more humble, I would say. And regardless of who winds up in the White House, let's hope that we can get there safely and civilly. But what I will say is, if you want to talk about who is the most dangerous person to society, I kind of am inclined to take the side of the person that's constantly having people try to kill him, because you know what? If we've learned anything from adventure games, it's that the hero usually winds up being the one who's always having someone try to kill him. I'm not saying Trump is a hero necessarily, I'm just saying. The dude seems to be going through a war zone for the sake of a job that he certainly doesn't need the money. So, there's that. Anyways, cheers to a civil democratic process. But I certainly think my 2 cents on it is the people on the left who like to preach inclusion while they celebrate violence and hatred of the other side. Well, it's not inclusion, it's not tolerance if you hate everyone and anything which you deem to be out of line or intolerant. So, until we start to see a little bit more respect for ideas that don't align with the approved narrative, we can't really say that the Liberal Party is more inclusive than the Conservatives, in my opinion. Anyway, make sure you have a plan to get out and vote. If you were planning to stay on the sidelines, my advice to you would be take into consideration the fact that having a democratic process is something that we want to continue to have. So, don't throw away your voice, even if it seems like it doesn't make a big difference. When you put them all together, quite possibly they do. Anyways, till next time, good luck on your adventure.